Okay, let's get straight to the point. What do you think this symbol means? Any guesses? Well, if you thought it was the recycling symbol, you'd be completely wrong. In fact, for a product to have this symbol on it, it doesn't even need to be recyclable. And that fact, along with the fact that so many people weren't informed about it, led to a situation in which people could hurt the planet while thinking they were doing the exact opposite. Now, who's responsible for this and why? Well, to understand all that, let's go back to where it started in the 1980s. Picture this. You're the CEO of an American plastic company at that time. Back then, things were going great. You were making more money than ever. But there was one problem. People were slowly but surely realizing how bad plastic was for the planet. And you needed a solution. What would that solution be? Recycling? Well, you were already funding campaigns for it, and the recycling symbol had already existed since 1970. But the thing with that symbol is that it is meant to indicate recyclability. Instead, many plastic companies adopted a different symbol called the Resin Identification Code, which is the symbol I talked about in the beginning of the speech. Now, one of the main differences between the two is the number in the middle. That number indicates a type of plastic. They go from 1 to 7. But of those types, only types 1 and 2 are regularly accepted in most recycling programs. But because of just how similar those two symbols looked, it did indeed confuse consumers. In fact, so many years later, in 2019, a survey showed that a majority of Americans think that this symbol means a product is recyclable. Which brings me on to our next point, which is that we've been looking at this from the company's perspective. So let's take a look at this from the consumer's perspective. Imagine this. You were always used to seeing the 3 chasing arrows on the recycling symbol. It was all going great until suddenly you saw some more products with a slightly different but very similar symbol. Were all those products somehow recyclable too? Well, unless you searched for it, it would be very hard to tell. And you could end up leaving that store without knowing the truth. And you'd be completely unaware of how misinformed you were. Now, you might be telling me that this was all back in the 1980s and all in America, but it isn't. And let me show you. Okay, how many of you drank from a plastic bottle today? A good amount, right? And what did you do once you finished that bottle? You threw it away, right? Yeah, that scenario has happened countless times, and it all adds up. Billions of plastic bottles are thrown away every single year, most likely never to be drank from safely again. But if you confront the companies that produce them about it, they can simply say that their products are recyclable. It's not their fault that you are not recycling their products. Okay then, let's assume that you finished that bottle and threw it in the recycling bin. Is it guaranteed that that bottle will be recycled? No. Why? Well, contamination plays a part, of course, but another part is that around 98% of single-use plastic, which includes plastic bottles, is produced through petrochemicals, not through recycling. You want it in different words? While many single-use plastic companies tell you that you should recycle their products and fund campaigns to tell you that, they, on average, produce 98% of their plastic through fossil fuels and chemicals from them, not through recycling. And in this case, recycling isn't used to make the environment better, no. Here, it is used as a way to shift responsibility away from the company and onto the consumer. Okay, responsibility for what? What's so bad about plastic that I came all the way here to talk about it? Well, it's one word, microplastics, which are tiny, microscopic plastic particles that result from the breakdown of plastic products. You might have heard they're in the oceans, but they're not just there. They can end up in the food we eat, the water we drink, and even the air we breathe. And as you might guess, their effects are catastrophic. They can cause breathing problems, hormone problems, and digestive problems. And that's not the worst part, because plastic can take centuries to decompose. And as a result, you get two scenarios. The first scenario is if we stop producing disposable plastic, the planet would more or less slowly heal in their regard at least. But the second and much more terrifying scenario is if we keep producing microplastics at such an alarming rate. To put it bluntly, things would keep getting worse and worse and worse. And if we know just how bad microplastics are for us and our health and our children's health, and we're doing nothing about it, then when are we going to do something about it? Are we waiting until a loved one is affected by it? Are we waiting until people get sick on the streets left and right so we can do something about it? No, it needs to end, and it needs to end now. And thankfully, there's something you can do about it. Simply put, reduce and reuse. Instead of buying plastic bottles, buy metal bottles and reuse them. Instead of buying plastic bags, use fiber bags and again reuse them. And there's so much more you can do just by starting with yourself. Secondly, is tell companies to reuse. Remember when you'd buy a glass soda bottle and once you finished it, you'd return it to the vendor and get some money back? Yeah, tell stores to bring that model back. And not just for soda, but for other things like dairy, fruits, vegetables, and other things. And you don't have to be a consumer. Even if you're a businessman or a shareholder or a company owner, influence the company's decision. Let them make the right choice. Because it doesn't matter if you're a consumer or a businessman, you both breathe from the same air, and that air is under threat by microplastics. And just like how they can spread through the air, so can words. Post about it, talk about it, share it. Tell people to reduce and reuse. Tell them how to do it. Because at the end of the day, this isn't something that just affects one person, one group, one nation, or even just one continent. No, it affects the entirety of humanity. And as a result, it has to be solved by all of humanity. So spread the word, everyone. Spread the word.